Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be counting down Genesis's worst to best albums. So I'm going to start with number 15, which is going to be my least favorite album, and then I'm going to go to number 1, which is going to be my favorite. And before I start the video, I just want to get this out of the way. This is my own personal opinion. Nobody else told me this list. I didn't go online and look at somebody else's and say this is my list. This is my actual list, okay? So coming at number 15, which is going to be the worst album in my opinion, is Calling All Stations, and the main reason for that is because Phil Collins left after We Can't Dance, and I think this album kind of shows that they really couldn't do it without Phil Collins, because in the 70s they showed that they could do it without Peter Gabriel and 75, Trick of the Tail, but this proves that they couldn't. And I mean, there's really no standout tracks on this album besides Calling All Stations and The Dividing Line. Those are like the only ones. There's tracks like Congo, Shipwrecked, Alien Afternoon, Not About Us, Uncertain Weather, Small Talk. Those tracks, they just mean nothing, and nothing really to grab on here except for those two main standout tracks. So without further ado, let's go on to number 14. Okay, so coming in at number 14, it was going to be their first album in 1969. Is going to be From Genesis to Revelation, and the main reason this got so low is because the songs are so short. There's nothing really to grab onto with this album. I mean, there's like one track that is alright. I think from When the Sour Turns to Sweet, that's like the only good track on this album. The rest of it is just like, there's no riffs, there's no guitar riffs. Like, Steve Hackett isn't here, Phil Collins isn't here, and you can definitely tell that there's a gap there, because with Trespass, the album after this, their sophomore album, you can tell it's getting a lot better because of Steve Hackett and because of Phil Collins. So I'm not really going to spend too much time talking about this one, so let's go on to the next one. So coming in at number 13 is going to be, in my opinion, their first commercially successful album in the 80s, and that is going to be Abacab in 1981. So the reason that Abacab is so low is because, again, there's not too much there to latch onto that's good material. I mean, it's just 80s pop. I mean, if you're that 80s pop kind of guy, that's great. This is a good album for you, and that's what you want to do. That's what you want to listen to, fine. But it's not for me, really, and I don't think there's too much good stuff on here. I mean, Man on the Corner, that's a pretty good song, but that takes up 4 minutes of the album. The self-titled Abacab, I mean, that's alright, but there's not a single track over here over, like, what, 7 minutes, 8 minutes? All of it's just a short, no lengthy tracks. It's all just short pop songs, and that's what brought it so low. So, let's go on to number 12. So next up is We Can't Dance, and now I actually like this better than Abacab, mainly because of the two longer songs. One of them is Fading Lights. I love that song, especially when they perform it live. That's like one of my favorite songs to listen to live by them, but that track really brings it up, but that's only 10 minutes of the album. And then there are some good pop tunes on here, but most of it is just the 90s stuff, and that's why it brought it so low, and I can't put it any higher for that reason. And I've heard the title track so many times, it's just like, every time I hear it, it's, please stop. And then it gets stuck in my head for the rest of the day, and every time I think, I'm like, why? Why did they make that song? Oh, gosh. Just, no. Number 11 is going to be Invisible Touch, their 1986 release. So this was 3 years after Genesis, their self-titled, which I actually like a lot better, because it stuck to their guns. It stuck to the proggy side a little bit more than I'd say this one did. This is like probably just as poppy as Abacab. There's just more catchy tunes on it, like the self-titled track. I really like that one. It's a good pop tune, but again, it's not the old prog. It's not the old prog it used to be, so I can't put it any higher than that. And I don't really want to talk about this album that much, because I just don't really like it that much. So we're just going to go on to the next one. Next up is going to be And Then There Were Three, the first album that's going to be on this list. In my opinion, the worst album from the 70s. And this is probably one of Genesis albums that I'm not too familiar with. I mean, I've listened to it the whole way through like 2 times, but that's about it. There are some good tracks on here. Burning Rope, Down and Out's alright. So there are some good tracks on here. That's why I brought it up higher. And mainly because it's, in my mind, probably their last full prog album. Besides the last track, which I'm going to talk about, which is one of their first love ballads. It's Follow You, Follow Me. I'm not too fond of that track at all. So, yeah. Up next is going to be Genesis' self-titled album. This was their 12th studio release in 1983, and it does have some good, solid tracks on it. Like I said before, it's definitely more on the prog side. Like the second half of this album has more prog tracks on it than, say, Abacab or Invisible Touch. And also, this album does have 2 of my favorite pop tracks by the band, That's All and Home by the Sea. And also, I forgot to mention Mama. That is a great song, great pop tune there. You know, all of Phil Collins' 80s stuff. It's pretty good, but it's not as good as the 70s, so let's get into that. Coming in at number 8 is going to be Duke, their 1980 release, and this is the album that started to dip into that more commercial sound that you will find on later albums like Abacab and Invisible Touch and We Can't Dance. All those albums, you get a little bit of a taste of that on this album, but it definitely has its prog tracks. That's why it got up so high. It has Behind the Lines, Duchess, Misunderstanding, again, a love ballad. It's alright, as long as it's not the whole album. Alone Tonight, Snooze Fest, Duke's Travels and Duke's End, the 10-minute song. I think it should have just been one song at the end of the album. But that's great stuff. Cul-de-sac, good song. So yeah, overall it's a very, very strong album. I give it a thumbs up. So if you're new to Genesis or you're new to prog, check this album out. It's not too proggy, but it definitely has those elements in there you want in a good prog album. So I'm going to leave that with that, and let's go to the next one. So, coming in at number 7 is going to be Wind and Wuthering, their second album without Peter Gabriel, with Phil Collins on the main vocals. And this album, I will say, it does have some really, really great stuff on it. And this doesn't really bring it down at all, and I don't have anything against this song, but it has their first love ballad, or their first pop ballad, or whatever you want to call it, and that is Your Own Special Way. I don't mind that song at all. And it's alright, but enough about the pop song. Let's get into the rest of the album. This is their first really proggy album on this list so far. 11th Earl of Mar, One for the Vine. That's a really good song you should check out. In That Quiet Earth, Watt Gorilla. It's an instrument. That's like one of their best instrumentals, I think, in my opinion. Watt Gorilla, one of their best instrumental pieces, in my opinion. It's not really widely known. It's not like Los Endos or any other crazy instrumental that is very popular and everybody knows. This is more of like one of those hidden ones. You just have to listen to the album and then you find it like, what's this? And it has a really cool chime intro. Like you hear the chimes and then the drums come in and then it's like, it's a really cool song. Check it out. Next album is going to be Trespass, their 1970 release, their sophomore album. It's pretty good stuff on here. This is the first album with Steve Hackett and Phil Collins, like I mentioned before. And you can definitely tell that there's a better guitarist on this album than the last one. This is like the album that put them on the map. So you're gonna find some really good stuff on here, like The Knife. That's one of my favorite Genesis tracks. And Looking for Someone, great tune. Opening track, love it. You can just tell from this album. If you listen to the last track of From Genesis to Revelation, then you listen to Looking for Someone, you can tell the difference there. It's like, it's kind of crazy. It doesn't even really sound like the same band, almost. So, Trespass has some really great tunes on it. Like I said, The Knife, Looking for Someone, Stagnation, White Mountain. So yeah, overall, really, really strong album. One of actually their first fully prog album, and it has some really good stuff on it, so you should definitely check it out. Let's go to the next one. Number 5 is going to be Nursery Crime. This was the album after Trespass, so following up a pretty good album, you know, how are they going to make it better? They did. I mean, this pretty much won up Trespass in every other way. I mean, their albums just keep getting better. Opening with the musical box, and then after that, letting the new members of the band, letting them write their own songs with 4 Absent Friends. One of my favorite, this is in my top 5 favorite Genesis tracks, no doubt about it. Turn of Giant Hogweed. I love this song. Maybe I can get a drum cover of this song soon. That would be great. Fountain of Salmacis, Fountain of Salamax. I've heard people pronounce it every way you can think of, and I'm just going to leave it the Fountain of Salmacis. I'm just going to say it like that, because everybody else says it different, and I'm like, there's no correct definition. I didn't even look it up on YouTube in preparation for this video, because everybody else says it different, but that's what I think it is. And Harold the Barrel, great song. 7 Stones. So a lot of really, really solid stuff on here. The 3 standout tracks, the musical box, 4 Absent Friends, and the Fountain of Salmacis. All great tunes. Love it. Love it. Check this album out if you have not already. And let's get on to the next one. Next up is The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, 1984. Peter Gabriel's final album, and I don't even know where to start. This is their only double album. I think it's their only album over an hour, and there is some really, really good stuff on here. But before I get to that, I just want to say that there is a lot of noise or areas that are just fluff, and they're just sort of there, and they don't really mean anything. For example, like Grand Parade of Lifeless Packaging, that song means nothing to me. It's sort of just there, and it's weird, and it's awesome, and it's Genesis, and I love it, but it doesn't need to be there. I think that's what made the album so much longer, is those tracks, like those 2-3 minute tracks that are sort of just there. But if you are new to prog, you probably don't want to check this one out first, because it is definitely prog. Any double album is a bad album to check out first if you're new to prog. But man, Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, one of the more mainstream tracks of this album. Fly on the Windshield, great song. Cuckoo Cahoon, love it. In the Cage, that's probably top 2 songs on this album. My favorite is actually the Colony of Slippermen. It's on the second album, second CD, and it's pretty good. I love the intro to the Colony of Slippermen. It's so weird. It's so Genesis. I love it. I mean, some of the stuff on here is just great. It's all good stuff. So, enough said. Let's go on to the next album. Next up, we're getting into the top 3, and the number 3 album by Genesis is going to be Trick of the Tail. Now, I love this album for tracks like, you know, Dance on a Volcano. Great opening track. Definitely in my honorable mentions to the video that we might be doing soon is top 10 Genesis songs. Like this video if you think we should do that video. Los Endos, like I said before, one of their best instrumentals. For some people that's in their top 10 songs. It's not for me. No instrumental by them is in my top 10 songs.
Seriously?
No.
What?
Good song though.
Yeah.
Entangled, beautiful, beautiful track. Love it. The songs are sort of paired together like Squonk and Mad Mad Moon, and Robbery, Assault, and Battery, and then Ripples, and then Trick of the Tail, the self-titled track, and then also the Los Endos, the finishing track. Now, Los Endos, I will say, is in the top 5 songs performed live. I love it when they perform it live, and they do stretch it on a little bit longer, but that's 100% worth it. Definitely check it out, live version. And studio version, it's still good. It's good either way. Trick of the Tail, very, very good album. Great album, solid. Everything that's good. Next album So Foxtrot is going to be the number 2 album. It's great. It's great stuff. I love it. There's so many good songs on here. I can't even start. I'm going to start with like the lower tiers and then work up to like Supper's Ready. That is actually my favorite Genesis song, so spoilers to a future video. Top 10 Genesis songs maybe. So like I said before, number 2 is Foxtrot. Get 'Em Out by Friday. I love this song. It's not quite in my top 10 songs, but man, it's a real good song, and a lot of people don't like it, and I have no idea why. Just because it's not like the other songs doesn't mean you can't like it. Horizons, Can Utility and the Coastliners, love it, all great stuff. Timetable, oh my gosh, so many good tracks on here. This was really hard to put at number 2 instead of number 1. Watcher of the Skies, that is in my top 3 favorite Genesis songs. It's so good. It's so good. I love the intro. If you don't get chills listening to that intro, there's something wrong with you. Supper's Ready. I don't even know where to start. This is just by far one of my favorite. Supper's Ready. The epic. Genesis' only epic song. Great stuff. Love it. Love it. Okay. Next album is Selling England by the Pound. I think everybody saw that one coming. I mean, I don't even know where to start with this one. I mean, so many great things on here. Selling England by the Pound. Battle of Epping Forest. Okay, so the starting track to kick off this album with Dancing on a Moonlit Night, that is a great song. I Know What I Like in Your Wardrobe. Also a great tune. Bertha Fifth, the 3rd track on the album, has one of my favorite Genesis guitar solos. Even though it might not be the flashiest or the fastest or like the best technique or anything like that, it is a great guitar work by Steve Hackett. One of my favorite. Like I said before, Battle of Epping Forest, After the Ordeal, The Cinema Show. Love this song. It has one of the best second halves of any other song in Genesis' whole discography. Isle of Plenty, to finish off the album, it sort of gives that dramatic effect like it did at the beginning, but it's more dramatic and uplifting, and yeah, this is all great stuff. Selling England by the Pound, definitely in my top 10 prog albums, probably in my top 5. That could also be a future video, but I would have to figure that out first because that's really hard. But yeah, Genesis' whole discography, it's all great stuff. I don't think there's too many bad songs or too many bad albums. I mean, they're one of my favorite bands. They're probably my top 3 favorite prog bands of all time. So, ending on a good note with Selling England by the Pound, their best album, definitely a top 5 prog album. I don't think Genesis has too much bad stuff in their discography. I mean, there are a couple bad albums here and there, like when they first started or without Phil Collins. But man, like their 70s stuff, that's some good stuff right there. Definitely check Genesis out if you already haven't. And I don't think I have anything else left to say. So like and subscribe, and see you guys next time.